Daf Yomi, Tractate by Metzia, Daf 100a, Part 2. With the word Snan, Ze Omer Eini Yodea, etc. The Gemara challenges Rabba bar Rav Huna's opinion. We learned in the Mishnah, if this one says, I do not know which one was sold, and that one says, I do not know which one was sold, they divide the disputed amount between them. Granted, according to the opinion of Rava, from the fact that the last clause of the Mishnah is referring to a case where there is a conflict between an uncertain claim and an uncertain claim, one can say that the first clause as well is referring to a case in which there is a conflict between an uncertain claim and an uncertain claim. But according to the opinion of Rabba bar Rav Huna, who said, yes, Sumcha says his ruling, even when there is a conflict between a certain claim and a certain claim, there is the following difficulty. Now that the Mishnah teaches that even when there is a conflict between a certain claim and a certain claim, Sumchas says that the parties divide the disputed amount between them. Is it necessary for the Mishnah to state that where there is a conflict between an uncertain claim and an uncertain claim, the parties divide the disputed amount between them? The Gemara rejects the question. If the liability is due only to that reason, there is no conclusive argument. One can say that the Mishnah taught the latter clause to shed light on the first clause, so that you will not say that the ruling in the first clause applies only where there's a conflict between an uncertain claim and an uncertain claim, but where there's a conflict between a certain and a certain claim, the ruling in the first clause does not apply, and the disputed amount is not divided. To dispel this notion, the Mishnah teaches the last clause, which is referring to a conflict between an uncertain and an uncertain claim, and then, by inference, the first clause must refer to a case where there is a conflict between a certain claim and a certain claim, and nevertheless the parties divide the disputed amount between them. The Gemara again challenges Rabba bar Rav Huna's opinion. We learned in the Mishnah, if this one says the large one was sold and that one says the small one was sold, then the seller takes an oath that it was the small one that he sold, and then the buyer takes the small one. Granted, according to the opinion of Rava, who said that when Sumcha says his ruling, it applies only where there is a conflict between an uncertain claim and an uncertain claim. But when there is a conflict between a certain claim and a certain claim, he did not say his ruling. It is due to that reason that the clause in the Mishnah in which each party offers a certain claim, the seller takes an oath. But according to the opinion of Rabba bar Rav Huna, who said, yes, Sumcha says his ruling even when there is a conflict between a certain claim and a certain claim, why does the Mishnah rule that the seller takes an oath? The Mishnah should have ruled that they divide the disputed amount between them. The Gemara answers, Sumchas concedes that where there is a requirement for one of the parties to take an oath required by Torah law, the disputed amount is not divided, as we will need to say below to resolve another challenge to Sumchas' opinion. The Mishnah teaches in the case of one who had two Canaanite slaves, one large which was worth more on the slave market, and one small worth less on the slave market, the buyer and seller disagree as to whether it was the large slave or the small slave that was sold. If the seller takes an oath that it was the small one that he sold, and then the buyer takes the small one, the Gemara asks, why does the seller take an oath? An oath is required only when a defendant admits to part of the claim made against him, but in this case, that which the buyer claimed from the seller, the larger slave, the seller did not admit to at all. And that which the seller admitted to, was, in other words, the smaller slave, the buyer had not claimed from him. And furthermore, with regard to the small slave, this is a case of here you are. The seller is not merely admitting that he is liable to give the slave in the future, but allows the buyer to take possession of the slave immediately, as Rashi explains in 4a. One who offers the disputed item immediately and not considered to be one who admits to part of a claim and is exempt by Torah law from taking an oath. And furthermore, one does not take an oath concerning a claim about slaves, but only concerning claims about movable property. For these three reasons, there should be no requirement to take this oath. Rav said the Mishnah is referring to a case where the buyer claims money from the seller, not a slave of a field. And the buyer claims that he gave the seller money equal to the value of a large slave, and the seller admits to having received money equal to the value of a small slave. And in the case of a field, the buyer claims that he gave the seller money equal to the value of a large field, and the seller admits to having received money equal to the value of a small field. And Shmuel said the Mishnah is referring to a case where the buyer claims he purchased a garment of a large slave, and the seller admits to having sold him a garment of a small slave. And in the case of the field, the buyer claims to be purchased the sheaves yielded by a large field, and the seller admits to having sold him the sheaves yielded by a small field. Wow, made it.